Welcome back to Graphite Hub's interview series. In part one of our recycling series, we focused on the rise of battery recycling within graphite. And now today, we're going into in a bit more detail around the science behind it and how it actually works. So today again, we've got Dr. Luke Sweeney joining me. Welcome, Luke. It's good to have you back here.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Harry.
Cool. So let's kick this off. Can you walk us through just how graphite is recycled within a battery?
Okay, so the traditional way graphite is recycled is we set it on fire. Yeah. And the reason why we used to set it on fire is because we've been setting things on fire for 50,000 years, 100,000 years. We're pretty good at setting things on fire, and graphite is combustible. Is when you heat it up enough, it's combustible, right? So we used to kind of recycle it to energy, and that's kind of how we used to say we're recycling graphite. But then for people who did science or anything like that, that makes CO2. that directly makes CO2. So it kind of seems a bit counterproductive to be getting a critical mineral that China produces exclusively, and setting it on fire to make CO2. So we don't really do that anymore, thank God. But
times have changed.
Yeah, they have changed. Well, I mean, some people don't do that anymore, but some people still do that. Yes, so we should be really moving away from that. But the reason why historically we did that 20 years ago when the volumes were quite low, and also we didn't really know what to do with it, because volumes were quite low because mobile phones and stuff. So that was okay, we'll recycle, we'll burn it, we can make energy from it, and actually again it's a low cost, low value product. But actually, so that's called pyrometallurgy, or pyrometallurgical recycling process. It's just pyro, setting things on fire. And the next one is, the one that we will start doing, or the one that we have started to do, is called hydrometallurgical processing, which water, which doesn't involve fire, thankfully. But the problem is because it doesn't involve fire, it involves water instead. Water is another waste product which actually produces lots of different complications. Rather than just giving it to the atmosphere and it's it's fine, it's in the atmosphere, it's not really, it's disappeared, right? But yeah, there's a big tank of contaminated water, nickel contaminated water or whatever. It's very very there, and it's I've got to deal with that. Yeah. So so we currently use hydrometallurgical recycling, and the primary focus of hydrometallurgical recycling is actually to extract the nickel, cobalt, lithium, and copper out, all the good stuff out, yeah. Right? I'm on a graphite podcast. I shouldn't be saying that. Yeah, no, all the bad stuff. Yeah, no.
Yeah, graphite should be at the top.
It should be. Yeah, graphite's at the top. Yeah. So instead, so graphite is actually is an afterthought basically. So the reason why we can get graphite through a hydromet process, which is really cool, but we get that just because of it's dissolved. Well, everything else is dissolved and the graphite doesn't dissolve. So we get it as a precipitate, and it's normally very contaminated, and it's normally it's very contaminated. It's been subject to loads of acid leaching, which doesn't make graphite very happy. There's lots of things to do with the interface on the basal edge plane, and how when you expose it to acids, it causes weird functionalization, and that causes lots of electrochemical shenanigans to happen when you start to put it into a battery again. So that all needs to be remedied. That is yes. So the current recycling route isn't made to get recycle graphite. So you kind of get this kind of powder at the end, or this graphite rich substance in the end, and it's normally between 80 to 95% pure. But you need to get electrochemical grade purity, graphite electrochemical. You need to get it from 85 or 80 to 95 to 99.99 or 99.95% pure. So you have to repurify it. Sometimes you have to reshape it.
Okay.
So sometimes again so that's kind of the bulk structure. So there's two elements. There's actually getting the graphite on its own. So let's say I've got the graphite, I've purified it, I've managed to get all the contaminants out, which is great. So I've got my graphite powder again. By the way, getting all those other contaminants from the hydromet process would also cost lots of money. And again, because it's because you're doing it through liquid, it produces lots of liquid waste, which is a problem as well. So once you've done that, I've got my electrochemical grade well, I've got my graphite that's that's got a purity of electrochemical grade, which is very happy. So I'm like, yes. But actually, there's lots of morphology problems. So there's lots of cracking on the particle surface, and this causes excess surface area to be exposed to the electrolyte, which isn't good. So then sometimes you need a heating step under nitrogen. So maybe you have like an annealing step. Depends on the temperature you goes. Depends on your like energy costs. So you normally have a temperature heating step to kind of try and heal these cracks, and then you also have to that sometimes causes all the particles to bind together. So you need to break all the particles apart again. So make sure you don't have big agglomerates. But then you also need to make sure that the surface is nice and sphericalized. It's still sphericalized. So that's also a problem as well. So you got to do that, and then once you've done that, you've got to recoat it using. So generally, getting in theory, you could get end-of-life graphite that's been taken from a hydromet process and purified, and then put it somewhere along the line of a virgin graphite production plant.
Yeah.
Because some of the steps will be the same. So in theory, you could do that. But the problem is that if you've got a very consistent supply of graphite, and you're making very good quality electrochemical grade graphite, and you suddenly like put 10% in or recycle graphite, and you misjudge it, your customers will realize. They'll be like, well, we've actually just done like a quality test on this latest batch, and something's gone wrong. Our electrochemical results are slightly different because maybe it's a bit more contaminated, or maybe the particle size has changed as well. So yes, that's in theory how you would recycle it.
Okay. Sounds like there's quite a few challenges there.
There's a lot of challenges, yes. Hence why no one's done it yet.
How far do you think we're away from seeing it be commercially viable?
Again, so China can do it. They can recycle graphite. In terms of commercial viability, I really wouldn't know.
Yeah. Not anytime soon.
I hope within the next 10 years. Well, I think definitely no. I'd probably say at least within the next 10 years. Yeah. We should be able to do it. I mean, there's lots of problems, but there's lots of problems, but we're pretty smart. We got phones, and we built these by ourselves. So we should be able to do it. Hopefully, we built the batteries. Yeah, we built the batteries. We should be able to recycle the material in it, right?
And so there's a common issue at the moment, maybe not an issue, but there's a bit of rivalry, let's say, between natural and synthetic graphite. More often than not, I'm seeing people always seem to have a preference one over the other. And at the moment, we're seeing that, synthetic does seem to dominate the space, especially in electric vehicle batteries. How does recycling differ between natural and synthetic?
So if you have first of all, people tend to mix natural and synthetic graphite. So you would have to recycle this in a batch. There is no way you are going to be able to separate natural and synthetic graphite unless they're sized completely differently. Unless your synthetic component is like 100 micrometers big, or your natural is like 20 micrometers. Unless there's like a very clear like physical dimension, like there's like a big physical difference between them, you're not going to be able to separate them. And even using this technique, we use X-ray diffraction for characterizing graphites. Even using that technique is really difficult to determine whether it's natural or synthetic, because you could just have very good quality natural grade graphite. So even scientists sometimes really struggle. And one of the best ways to determine whether it's natural or synthetic is to actually look at it under an electron microscope and just look at the shape, because natural tends to be a lot more rounded than synthetic. But in terms of recycling, there's not really. I don't think there'll be that much of a difference between them. In theory, if it works for one, it could work for the other. But the problem is morphology. And I think what the bigger problem you have is just making your sample homogeneous. Maybe with the synthetic graphite particle structure, if they may be a bit more rigid, they might be prone to cracking more. But that should be fixed in the annealing process. So generally, I don't think that's not that much of a problem, I think.
Okay.
But
I'm sure the viewers at home will be happy to hear that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you're recycling natural graphite, any graphite from your car, it's going to have a mixture. So you're going to either inadvertently or inadvertently be recycling both of them at the same time.
Great. Fantastic. Well, thanks for joining us again today, Luke. Looking forward for our next episode, which is going to focus on certain companies out there that are focusing on recycling, and then also the future of recycling within graphite. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, Luke.
Thanks.